Good day, learners, and welcome to the mythological background of Iliad, where we will talk about the writer, the gods and goddesses involved in the events unfolding to the Trojan War, and the highlights of the story where we could understand that our actions ultimately lead us to our fate. Who is Homer? Homer, in 1000 BC, is an ancient Greek poet known and presumed to be the author of Iliad and Odyssey, two of the greatest stories ever told in the world. He was called the blind poet possibly because he was indeed a blind bard or because his name translates as blind. Iliad and Odyssey depict the complete life of the ancient Greeks in action. Iliad shows cruelty and passion found in war, while Odyssey shows great adventures. Thus their themes: one's faith is the result of one's actions, and one's destiny is largely a matter of one's own making. The Trojan War was one of the highlights of Iliad. One of the reasons of the war is, aside from being caused by the abduction of Helen, was that Zeus had devised such war to control population. During this time, the war unfortunately produced so many deaths, and one of the reasons of the deaths also was the plague of Apollo, for he was angry that the daughter of one of his oracles was captured as a prize by Agamemnon. You will know Agamemnon as a character later on. The Trojan War had lasted for 9 years, and on its 10th year, that's when important events were highlighted. Emotional scenes, dramatic moments between characters, the humbling act of King Priam, the intervention of the Olympians in the war, thus making the Trojan War and the entire story of Iliad an unforgettable tale. Iliad is a story about love, about war, and about heroism. Narrates the notable deeds of Achilles as he led the Greek army in the battle against the Trojans, how gods and goddesses favor a few mortals, and how they intervene into mortal affairs, and a story about how the greatest city known to man before fell to ruins because of one golden apple. The Judgement of Paris. We begin with a banquet of the wedding of King Peleus and Thetis. Thetis was a sea nymph, and nymphs are mythological creatures or spirits known to inhabit different land forms and water forms, and they are often depicted as beautiful maidens. King Peleus was the king of Myrmidons in Thessaly, and both are the parents of Achilles. All gods and goddesses were esteemed guests in the wedding banquet. They were happily invited to witness such union of a mortal and a deity, except one. Eris, the goddess of discord, was not in the list, only because she was naturally not popular in Olympus. That's why she was left out. So during the banquet, when everyone was happily dining and doing whatever they like in Greek fashion and consent, she threw a golden apple in the middle of the banquet with the words engraved on it saying, "For the fairest." Of course, all goddesses there wanted to be the fairest, but eventually it all goes down into three. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. Zeus found it difficult to give his judgment, for if he chose any one, he would surely lose the affection of the others. If he would choose, of course, his beloved wife, Aphrodite and Athena would be mad at him. If he would choose Aphrodite, then his wife and his favorite daughter would be mad at him. And if he chose his favorite daughter, then the remaining women will be very mad at him. So what did he do? He sent the goddesses to Mount Ida and told them that there is a man there worthy and credible to be the judge of beauty. And this man turned out to be Paris or Alexandros. He was raised as a shepherd when he was small, and he did not know before that he was the son of King Priam and Queen Hecuba. Because again, of a prophecy which led him to be discarded from the kingdom is what most Greek fathers would do for their sons. But anyway, he is married to a nymph, Oenone or Oenone. Thus the judgment of Paris began. They handed him the golden apple and began to offer bribes or promises in order to win the favor of Paris. The bribes. We have first Hera, who told Paris that if he chooses her, he'll make Paris the lord of Europe and Asia. So imagine being the leader of the entire Europe and Asia, all the majesty and glory will be given to you. For Athena, she offered that if she was chosen to be the fairest by Paris, all the victory will be his, as he leads the Trojans in war against the Greeks. So the fulfillment and the promise of winning battles is the bribe of Athena. So imagine being victorious in all your battles. Last but not the least, we have Aphrodite, who offered, of course, Paris to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. In the end, Paris favored Aphrodite because who wouldn't want the most beautiful woman to be your wife, right? Maybe Zeus knew Paris all along because, birds with the same feather flock together thing. But anyways, Aphrodite was given the golden apple and thus she was known to be not only the goddess of love, but also the goddess of beauty. Aphrodite showed Paris a vision of the most beautiful woman in the world that he is going to marry, and this is no other than Helen. She is the daughter of Zeus and Leda. She is also the queen of Sparta since she was at the time currently married to King Menelaus, the king of Sparta, and she was known to be the most beautiful woman in Greece. The judgment of Paris brought joy and pride to Aphrodite, but it paved no good fortune for the Trojans. Because Hera and Athena were not favored by Paris, such decision becomes detrimental to the war that will ensue in the future. The Greeks at this point earned their alliance with the Queen of Olympus and the goddess of wisdom and battle. Now what about Oenone or Oenone? Well, Paris left her just like that. Yep, just like that. And off went Paris along with Aphrodite straight to Sparta. The abduction of Helen. In some versions, the abduction of Helen happened literally where she was taken from Sparta into a ship all the way to Troy. To some version, it was Aphrodite who had whispered to Helen's ears to fall in love with Paris and that she went with him under the goddess's spell. In other versions, the abduction did not happen because it was love at first sight. So which do you think, my dear learners, is the version more meaningful to our context or more meaningful to you? At that time, Helen was currently married to King of Sparta, Menelaus. When Paris arrived at Sparta, he was openly welcomed as a guest and was treated fairly. The ties between guest and host were very strong. Each promised to help each other and not harm one another. Menelaus, having trusted Paris in this manner, went off to Crete for some business. This gave Paris an opportunity to abduct Helen, or so it may seem. When King Menelaus came back, both Helen and Paris were not there. He then received the word that Helen was abducted by Paris to Troy. In his anger, he called upon all Greece to help him in his voyage towards Troy. So he recruited the best champions and generals to seize Troy and win back Helen from Paris. Among the ranks were well-known characters such as Agamemnon, the brother of Menelaus and the king of Mycenae, Achilles and his army called the Myrmidons, the cunning and wise Odysseus, and the courageous Diomedes, who later on successfully hurled a spear and impaled the god of war Ares. With all the chieftains, warriors, soldiers, and champions of Greece, 1,000 ships set sail along the innocent seas on that day, heading onwards with great fury, vengeance, and pride, all for the love and beauty of a woman named Helen, a face that launched 1,000 ships, and for the glory of conquering Troy.